Welcome to Healthy Buzz, the podcast for women who are craving honest answers in a supported community. Hosted by Brandy Homerding, a certified nutrition therapy practitioner who believes your body isn't broken, but the narrative around women's health is. Each week, we're diving deep into holistic health topics, challenging the one-size-fits-all approach, and empowering you to trust your own informed intuition. Get ready to feel seen, supported, and seriously informed. This is Healthy Buzz, where collaboration meets unfiltered transparency in women's health. Welcome back to another episode of Healthy Buzz. When we talk about deep health, we rarely talk about our dentist, but that changes today because we are going to discuss how underdiagnosed airway issues and poor breathing mechanics are silently wrecking women's sleep, hormones, and energy. And joining me for today's conversation is Kristen Geist of Prana Sleep and Wellness. Kristen has been practicing dentistry for 8 years, but during the last 6, she has been narrowing her focus to airway, sleep apnea, and adult laser tongue tie release. Several years ago, she was struggling with exhaustion, lightheadedness, anxiety, and trouble breathing before she was properly tested and diagnosed with something called upper airway resistance syndrome, which that is on the spectrum of sleep apnea. Now she works together with other providers to help those with sleep apnea, tongue ties, and other different things going on in their mouth so that people can feel their best. She lives in upstate New York with her husband, son, and 2 adorable rescue pups. She loves to spread awareness about the issues and things like sleep apnea and tongue ties and how this can cause different problems for adults and what signs to look for when you should be screened. Kristen, welcome to today's show.
Thanks for having me, Brandy.
So most importantly, I want to hear and I want others to hear your story because you started off as just a regular dentist who developed this passion for airway, sleep apnea, tongue ties. And how did you get on that journey?
Yeah, so I was just a regular old tooth mechanic, like most of us were, just drilling and filling and, fixing. Like I just saw an emergency. She broke her front tooth off. I'm not going to let her go through the weekend without her front tooth.
Right.
So, fixing teeth. And that was just, the day-to-day, like kind of did what I learned in dental school. And then I was having these moments of just feeling completely exhausted and lightheaded. And I have a small practice. I felt like I was going to pass out just from walking to like my dental chair to the front desk. And I'm like, something's wrong. And the anxiety I was having was like through the roof. And like all these things were kind of snowballing. And so I did what anyone would do. You went to your primary care and they're like, are you stressed? Honey, let's work on your stress, like that type of thing. And I'm like, I don't know, like I think I'm handling things okay. Like, you think you're doing all the things to take care of yourself. And that was basically it. And then it kept going on. So then I was like, well, maybe I'll keep digging deeper. I went to a ton of doctors. Actually, I ended up seeing an ENT, an allergist, a pulmonologist. I ended up at urgent care. And then they sent me straight to the hospital because they thought I was having a pulmonary embolism because my oxygen was low. And I was like,
wow.
Yeah, which is so screwed up because simple things could have been screened for that weren't. Anywho, so after all of that, shockingly, they still didn't have any answer for me. And they were like, oh, honey, sweetie, like, let's work on your stress. I think it's your anxiety, that whole thing. And so then I went home being like, maybe I'm just crazy and I'm not dealing with things as well as everybody else, apparently. And I happened to go to a course about sleep testing and sleep apnea. It was like the stars aligned because I only went because I wanted to meet my sister there. And I had no idea like what dentists could do for sleep apnea. I literally just signed up and was like, I'll see you there. And as part of the class, they had us take sleep tests. Well, they were taking volunteers, people who snored or knew they had sleep apnea. And then they needed some like normal sleepers for comparison so that we could learn. And I really didn't want to because I didn't want to screw up my night of sleep with a sleep test. But I'm like, fine, you need one more volunteer in the name of science. I'll do it. The next day when they printed out our results, I remember the tech looking at me like, girl, you are not breathing. Like, I am not a doctor, but like, you seriously need to see somebody. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I sleep fine. I didn't know that I had a problem with my sleep. I always had been a like light sleeper, quote unquote, but I don't know. I kind of thought my sleep was fine. And so it was just this light bulb moment of like, oh my gosh, nobody has ever looked into my sleep after all these complaints of being tired, which makes 0 sense in hindsight. But that's the reality. And unfortunately, that's even more the reality for women, and especially for women who look like me. A lot of women who are thinner, just get completely like passed over for anything like sleep or sleep apnea related, because there's such a bias there of the old school, like it's only old fat men, which is just couldn't be further from the truth. So in a way, like as much as it sucked going through all that, I was glad, because once I finally got to the right people and got to a pulmonologist who read my sleep test and was like, oh yeah, you have this thing. And it makes a lot of sense that your anxiety is crazy and you can't remember things and the brain fog. And he made me feel validated. But then it was like, I don't really know what to do with you, kind of was how I felt. It was like, yes, you have this thing. And this was, 6-7 years ago. And unfortunately, it was kind of like, you could do a CPAP, or you're a dentist. Why don't you make yourself an oral appliance for sleep apnea? And I was like, huh? I don't even know what that means. So he at least got me to like step one, told me what it was, that I knew kind of like I need to work on my breathing and my sleep. And from there, I just kind of fell down the rabbit hole of sleep apnea and better breathing and all that stuff. And as I started to feel better, less headaches, fatigue basically gone, anxiety way better, all the things, I'm like, I cannot be the only person dealing with this. So then I just kind of started helping other people with the same thing. And then through social media, a lot of other women just being like, that's me. Do I need a sleep test? And we spiraled and here we are.
Yeah. What a journey. I always feel like the people who are most passionate about the things they're doing have had their own personal experience with it. So they can really help advocate for like, hey, this is what you need to do and what we need to ask for and how we need to tackle this challenge that you're having.
Yeah.
So, and Kristen and I met through a group called the Unconventional Collaborative, and we did not know each other, but we've been connected for like a year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah, I
something
think so.
like that.
Yeah, the collab is awesome.
Yeah. And like she has taught me so much about upper airway resistance, just sleep apnea, things like that, that it's triggered a lot of things when I'm working with clients where I'm like, hey, I think this needs to be explored a little bit more with an airway dentist, or you need to have a sleep test, or maybe some myofunctional therapy. So it's really opened my eyes. And a lot of my clients have been like, oh my gosh, since you made that referral, I feel so much better. We found these things going on and like, I feel so much better. I'm sleeping better. So it does play such an important role when we think about the like bigger clinical picture of how people are presenting with their symptoms. So can you explain to our listeners a little bit about, like you have upper airway resistance syndrome, right? How is that different or similar to sleep apnea?
Yeah. So I'll kind of explain it in some analogies that I like to use. So of course, I want you to always be breathing fully in and out normally, right? I imagine a faucet. If you turn on the faucet and the water's coming through all the way, that's normal breathing, right? If I turn the faucet off, nothing comes through, that's apneas. You're basically stopping breathing. And that's a lot of stress on your body. There's kind of an in-between where you put that faucet on and there's little drips. Little drips, little drips. Those are called hypopneas. That's kind of like what a lot of UARS people have. It's like you're getting some air through, your oxygen might be okay, but your body's stressed and straining to breathe. It's almost as if I was like, hey, Brandy, you get a jumbo straw to breathe through, like as big as you want. But Kristen, you get a coffee stirrer to breathe through all night long. Let's just see how you feel. It's like that. So unfortunately, it doesn't get picked up a lot because the scoring is different. The translation is different. It doesn't look like traditional sleep apnea, even though your body is stressed the heck out. And all night long, your sleep is fragmented from it. And that fragmentation just throws everything for a loop, from hormones to how you feel to your memory and brain fog. So it does take having sometimes the right team to kind of like put those puzzle pieces together. And that's where like the fact that you're noticing those signs for people is huge, because nobody's probably ever mentioned it to them before. And if that's a piece of the puzzle, it can be a game changer for people. So it's basically the struggle to breathe causing fragmentation of your sleep is what's causing the issue for most people.
Interesting. Okay. So it sounds like there's varying degrees to which somebody could be.
Spectrum.
Yeah. Because I've had clients be like, yeah, I had a sleep test done and it said I had mild sleep apnea, but nothing was recommended for me. And I'm like,
I don't love that.
So you're just supposed to struggle with sleep all night?
Put a pin in that one real quick, because one of my biggest frustrations is the way that sleep apnea is labeled. The mild, moderate, severe. And even the guy who came up with it says that that was like one of his biggest regrets, because it leads a lot of people to not getting treated. Mild sleep apnea, you have a more mild chance of a cardiac event, like a heart attack or stroke. fabulous. But it's not
Wow.
in terms of like everything else and how it affects your life and your health in other ways. So mild sleep apnea absolutely should be treated, and it gets written off all the time and it drives me nuts in case you can't tell. But also home sleep tests underestimate. So if you have mild on a home test, you're probably more moderate than you realize, and it's only going to get worse likely as you get older. So if you could get on it sooner and feel better potentially sooner and lower your risk of all kinds of things, why wouldn't we do that?
Yeah. Okay. So just the mild means a mild risk of a cardiac event doesn't really impact, not taking into the full picture of the everyday
Yeah.
day-to-day stuff that
I mean,
happens.
you think about it. So mild is like you might have stopped breathing on average 8, 9, 10 times an hour. That's not mild. That's like very, very scary. So yeah, it bothers me, but that's unfortunately what a lot of physicians still say. Oh, it's just mild. And so then to me, I'm like, so we wait till it gets really bad and then we treat you? Like that doesn't make sense.
Right. Well, I mean, that's, I feel like a lot of things in conventional medicine where we wait until the lab values are way out of range. And then it's like, oh, we have a problem. We need to rewind. Then when there's like so many preventative things that could have been done prior to that would have like not allowed the alarm bells to go off. It could have just been like, hey, let's make a few little changes and we can fix this.
Right.
So there is such a stigma around, well, one, there's a stereotype as to who is going to have a sleep apnea issue. But then there's also, I feel like, a stigma around sleep apnea because I know for myself, anytime I bring up like, you might have some sleep apnea issues, people get very defensive.
Yes. I've had to change my verbiage with it. And I actually tend to not even bring up sleep apnea because there is that stigma and it makes people immediately go to feeling offended or like a weight conversation, which is like such a small piece of it, to be honest with you. So I tend to say things like, I'm seeing some signs that perhaps your body's not getting the sleep that you need. And like leading it more into like, how can we optimize your health? How can we help you? How can we support you? Versus like, you have this thing wrong with you and it's all about weight, because it's not. I was at like my lowest weight when I was diagnosed, and sometimes it's just your anatomy kind of getting in your way or environmental things. It's hard to say, but I tend to actually not even say sleep apnea, and people warm up to the idea better.
Hey, Healthy Buzz listeners, are you feeling like you're constantly struggling to hit your protein goals? Like, you know, you should be getting more protein for energy, muscle support, and overall well-being, but you're not quite for sure how to make that happen without sacrificing flavor or other important nutrients. I get it. That's why I created the High Protein Power Plan, a delicious and easy to follow 7-day meal plan designed specifically for women who want to effortlessly reach 130 grams of protein or more every single day. Head on over to bcw.becollectivewellness.com/high protein recipes to download your High Protein Power Plan today. So what are these signs and symptoms that people might be exhibiting if they're dealing with some upper airway resistance or sleep apnea type issues?
So I would say the traditional signs are more of the snoring, you gasp in the night, or you wake up with that like heart racing, fluttery feeling, high anxiety in the morning, headaches in the morning, high blood pressure, big one. High blood pressure for no apparent reason is very, very commonly linked. But the less common ones, and the ones I see more commonly with women, are more of that kind of generalized fatigue. They just describe it differently, I feel like, than men. And also the brain fog, the memory issues. And the biggest one with women is clenching and grinding and jaw pain. And when I kind of take a step back and think about it, it makes perfect sense. I mean, if you're struggling to breathe, your body's going to sacrifice enamel all day, every day to open up. Oxygen is king. So you're going to make sure you get that oxygen. But a lot of people just still blame clenching, grinding on stress. And then it's just that cycle of like, okay, but what do I do? It's a physical stress. It's a physical stress on your body if you can't breathe. When we get people breathing, a lot of that stuff just melts away. It's not a Botox deficiency or a plastic deficiency. You don't just need a night guard. You might just need to breathe.
Oh, I hear that all the time, just in conversations, people being like, not even with my clients, just in conversations, people being like, oh yeah, I grind my teeth, but I just wear this night guard at night. And I'm like, this is a bigger issue. It's not just you're stressed out. There's a bigger problem going on here.
Yeah.
And the body does want to breathe, right? So if we're thinking about like you're not having sufficient airway, you're breathing through that little tiny coffee stir, your body's going to be so stressed out. Cortisol's going to shoot through the roof. You're not going to get restful sleep. And then you're going to have these other symptoms that you complain of, like the fatigue, like crushing fatigue. A lot of people are like, I'm sleeping 8 hours a night, but I don't wake up refreshed.
Yeah.
Or like they're having some weight issues, or they're having these other like GI issues even. How is the mouth connected to like even the gut?
Oh my gosh, big topic here. So, well, it's literally the entrance, right? It's the same tube. It's literally the opening. So I can see a lot of signs early of a variety of systemic things, like one small one with, for example, Crohn's. So a lot of people may have certain sores in their mouth, and that might key us in that there's something going on with that. But generally, like big picture, if somebody's breathing through their mouth all the time, it creates a different environment. Dry, no saliva on your teeth. Your teeth are getting kind of destroyed because you don't have that protective layer. But what that does in an even bigger way is it screws up your oral microbiome, because now the bad bugs can thrive, the bugs that cause all kinds of issues, not just in your mouth, but in your whole body. You're swallowing your saliva 2,000 times a day. Where is it going? That inflammation, the bad bugs, those are going right down. So a lot of people who have gut issues and oral health issues, they go hand in hand. So we tend to see like a bidirectional, in a positive way, as one gets better and the other one tends to get better, which is amazing. And now we can do salivary testing. You spit in a tube and I can see a lot of what's going on in your mouth. And I may see some bugs in there that I'm like, I don't know what this is, but let's find you someone who does. And then we can work on the gut stuff separately and I can work on the mouth stuff. But it all goes together. And I think a lot of people still put like dentistry and your head in like a separate box as if things don't play together. And one of the biggest ones I see that I think a lot of people don't realize is acid reflux. So common for us to see the signs. You might have enamel loss on your teeth. Your teeth are getting yellow and we don't know why. Acid's destroying your enamel. Why is there acid in your mouth? Well, as you know, there can be different reasons for acid reflux, but airway is a huge one that gets missed. If I'm struggling to breathe all night, I'm gasping. What's that doing? That's pulling up acid every time that happens. So for people where I'm like, do you sleep on your right side? Because I'm seeing all this enamel loss on all your right side. And they're like, how did you know that? The saliva pools and it's acidic and it's wearing away your enamel. So there's things that we can see when you're keyed into it that give us a lot of really, really important information. So I think having providers who don't just look at like, here's a tooth, here's a cavity, let's fix it, and say like, why did this form? Like, why is this here? Is important, or else it's just going to keep happening.
I love how the much detective work you're doing, like when you're looking in somebody's mouth, you're piecing together this whole puzzle and you're like, hey, I'm drawing from what I see in here. You might sleep on your right side. And they're like,
yeah, people look
cameras in my room.
How did you know that? But it's pretty amazing. And the hard part is sometimes then when we refer them back to primary, it's like nothing happens. So that's why I've had to just go directly to people like you and to people who directly do sleep and like kind of really guiding people to those who are going to like dig into the lab work and not just say, you're fine, because it's frustrating. It's very frustrating.
Yeah. The body is all connected. The head's not separate from the rest of the body. The gut's not separate from the rest of the body. Like everybody puts our body parts in conventional medicine in silos. And it's like, you have GI issues, you see a GI doctor. Yep. You have dentist issues, but there's such a big connection. And when you work with a provider who's connecting the dots for you or leading you to the people who can help connect the dots, you feel like connected, like your body is.
Yeah. You just have fewer issues. Like if we're just Band-Aid after Band-Aid after Band-Aid for like say a GI issue, but we haven't figured out like a root, it's not going to stop. Right. Yeah. And it's the same with everything we do. Like it drives me nuts if I can't get somebody under control with cavities and stuff. Cause I'm like, but I need to figure out why, or else this is going to keep happening. So no, I think that's what a lot of us, I think in the collaborative especially, are like, we're done with this whole like conventional model and like being in silos thing. Like we can figure this stuff out.
Yep, exactly. Okay. So you mentioned something in there that I think is a big topic that we need to spend a little bit more time on, and that's mouth breathing. Can we talk a little bit more about the impact of mouth breathing? You kind of alluded to it when we talked about like GI health, but like overall, what impact does that have? Why should we be breathing through our nose versus our mouth? And why are people breathing through their mouth instead of their nose? Like, would love to dive into that more.
Sure. So your body wants to breathe through your nose. That's the default way that your body should be able to breathe and wants to breathe. But of course, if you can't, it's going to compensate. going to open your mouth. But your mouth is for eating, your nose is for breathing. There are so many reasons why that helps you get more oxygen, literally 20% more oxygen to your brain. Things are filtered, immunity. There's so many benefits from the actual nose itself. But one of the things that I find fascinating is just the nervous system effects. Because if your body wants to breathe through your nose, and that's kind of like the default, that's the safe way, when you're mouth breathing, that's a sign to your body there's something wrong. What's happening? Who's chasing me? Why am I stressed? Without even realizing it, your body's in this kind of chronic state of stress when you're mouth breathing. And it's just like one of those things that just flies under the radar. But as we flip that switch and get people breathing better, they notice a huge shift with their state and just kind of how they feel. So I would say that's one of the big things. Why it happens can be a variety of things. Sometimes it is anatomical, but a lot of times it's environmental. Maybe as a kid you had some allergies, or there was something that caused you to have that habit. Something in your home, or a pet, or mold, who knows, something that caused you to not be able to breathe well, and you formed that habit. Or maybe you used a pacifier and it created a really high palate. And the reason that that's important is the roof of your mouth is the floor of your nose. So if we create this high vaulted palate, it takes up all of your nose space. You can't breathe through your nose versus having a flat, broad palate. You have breathing space. So it can be things anatomically as you develop. It can be environmental things, but there's often some trigger, some reason that it happens, and then we create that habit. But there are ways to retrain our bodies to breathe through our nose. And you read the book Breath, right? I think.
Not yet.
Yeah, it's a really good listen or read for anybody, even if you're not in the health and wellness space. But the cool thing is, as we train ourselves to breathe through our noses, it stays more open. The opposite is true too. So for people who have a trach and they stop breathing through their nose, it closes up. So if we can work on it and improve that habit and get it better, it stays more open. So it does get easier over time. You don't always need a crutch. But there are a variety of reasons why it can happen. So that's where we have to kind of figure out, detective work wise, how are we going to fix it?
So what does a retraining process look like? I guess before we talk about that, but I know you also focus on tongue ties, and tongue ties are something that often we associate with babies, right? Because you can often hear about tongue ties and lip ties and cheek ties and all that stuff with infants and newborns. But sometimes that's getting overlooked or maybe not addressed. And then adults are showing up with tongue ties. So can we explore that topic a little bit more so people might know what a tongue tie is and why that maybe is causing some of their issues?
Yeah, absolutely. And if I make this confusing at all, please stop me. But tongue ties typically are overlooked in adults, or just not, I don't even know what to say overlooked. We just aren't trained in this. Even as someone who's trained on the head and neck, we don't learn this stuff. So it's really only people who've fell down the airway rabbit hole, I would say, our eyeballs have been opened. Everybody has a connection under their tongue. Everybody has that fascia under their tongue. There's a little connection. Everyone's got one. It's a matter of how is that affecting your function? How limited is the mobility of your tongue? Your tongue needs to be able to move around, clean the food off your teeth, go up to the roof of your mouth to swallow, help you chew. There's so many functions of the tongue that just happen naturally. You don't realize. Speaking. So sometimes kids get caught with speech stuff, but in general, with the mouth breathing piece, I think a lot of people don't realize if your tongue is literally tied down to the roof of your mouth, you don't have mobility, you're going to naturally be more of a mouth breather. When your tongue is up on the roof of your mouth, you have to breathe through your nose. And that's where your tongue should be. That's the home base of your tongue all the time, the roof of your mouth. It's kind of nature's natural palate expander, is the pressure of your tongue. So if your tongue can't do that, or it's hard for your tongue to do that, you're going to be naturally more of a mouth breather. So with people who have a tongue tie, I tend to see mouth breathing. I tend to see a lot more jaw issues, because if you think about it, every time you're speaking, every time you're chewing, every time you go to clean food off your teeth, your whole jaw has to go with your tongue versus your tongue being able to move on its own as it should. So I tend to see in adults more of the jaw pain, headaches, neck tension is a big one. And I would say it's been around. I think we just weren't aware of the connection as much in adults, or we've kind of been you're speaking fine, you're chewing fine, but is it fine if you're swallowing air every time you swallow and now you're having digestive issues because of your tongue? I don't know. Probably not. But nobody's connecting the dots.
Mm-hmm. So one thing that really drives me nuts, especially since learning so much more from you, is one, the position of our tongue should be at the roof of our mouth. And everybody that's listening right now, I want you to like check in with your body.
Yeah, where's your
Where
tongue?
is your tongue? Where is it in your body? Is it at the roof of your mouth? Is it at the base of your mouth? Like that can be a big sign, and something I ask my clients a lot. I'm like sitting there talking to them, like, where is your tongue at right now? And they're like, oh, it's at the bottom of my mouth. I'm like, okay, so we definitely need to do some work. So we're going to find somebody that can help you out here. But also, so many times when I'm doing like a workout, so many different instructors will be like, all right, peel the tongue off the roof of your mouth. And I'm like, why are we saying that? That's where it lives. And it drives me nuts.
I know, I've heard that a few times in yoga. And I'm like, I guess if you're doing a certain breath work, like maybe you're doing like alternating, but no, keep your tongue up there.
Mm-hmm. Yep, for sure. Okay, so when somebody, if they're a candidate for a tongue tie release, like how are they preparing for that? What do they need to know about that? If they have been determined, they worked with the right practitioner who has told them, yes, you have a tongue tie, you could benefit from a tongue tie release.
Yeah, that's a great question, because I think a lot of providers, unfortunately, ENTs and dentists are just what I call snipping a tongue tie, which is just not, it needs to be a functional assessment. And if somebody's calling it a tongue tie revision, that's a red flag. I would find a different provider, because a revision is a redo. A release is an initial. So that's your first red flag. If they're calling it the wrong name, then I wouldn't go there. But definitely, I would say somebody who's looking at your range of motion and looking functionally, but who is recommending that you do myofunctional therapy before. You had talked about that a little bit, but myofunctional therapy is basically like physical therapy for your airway, for your tongue. If we just release your tongue, it's not going to know what to do. It needs to be trained, and it needs to know where it goes. It needs to have some tone so that you can properly breathe and swallow, or else it just won't be as effective as it could be otherwise. But another big thing that I think nobody thinks about is just safety wise of when I'm doing the release, I need your tongue to have some tone and to be able to stay up there. You know, I have ways I can protect you, but I'm in there with a laser, a very, very precise CO2 laser, but I don't want things moving around. I want to know I'm not getting any nerves or blood vessels that I don't want to get. So I feel like for your safety and for your best benefit for your sleep and your breathing, you need to do the myo before. I actually don't do any releases anymore unless somebody has committed to that and they're going to do myo after. And there are tons of people who just do them, and you might see some benefits, but not, I would say it's not the best practice.
Okay, that's good to know. Yes, myofunctional therapy was brand new to me, and I was like, what is this? And it's been so eye-opening to see that. But I think that also goes with like, there's a correlation, it sounds like, between a tongue tie and airway issues. But then also it makes me think of like, if we're just doing mouth taping, but the tongue is in the wrong position to begin with, that could be counterintuitive.
With mouth tape, if somebody has any signs of sleep apnea or any of the things we've talked about, I would really encourage you to get screened first, because it can kind of, well, A, you're going to probably feel claustrophobic, but B, it could exacerbate things. If you don't have those signs and you can breathe well through your nose, what I would recommend is like a little tiny mouth tape. There's one that I like called Taper. It's just a little one. I can still kind of talk around it. I want your body to learn how to stay closed. I don't want something sealing your whole face up, because that's not really going to help you for the long term. I want your muscles to learn how to do it. So I would say if you are wanting to experiment, then you could do like for an hour during the day while you're checking emails, while you're watching something, and just kind of see what your awareness is. But that's huge, because if your body doesn't know how to breathe well through your nose and your tongue's not in the right place, you're not really helping yourself all that much. And you may be like, it didn't work for me. Well, we might need to do more.
Yeah. Because that was very trendy. I mean, I feel like the trend has backed off a little bit, but it was a big thing for a while. Everybody was mouth taping. And yes, in the right situation, it is beneficial.
It can be a great tool, but I feel like we've got to do a couple of key things first, like make sure you can breathe out of the nose holes.
Like sometimes people are just trying to DIY too many things on their own. And like when you actually work with the practitioner who is trained, you can stop throwing all of the things at the wall and like have a very clear path of this is what needs to happen in order to have these results.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, so we touched on a little bit about using like a CPAP, and you mentioned oral appliance. Can we talk a little bit more about those? So we've talked about the myofunctional therapy, we've talked about the tongue tie release and how exploring if that's an issue for you, how those could be contributing to your upper airway issues or sleep apnea. So then what about like, You mentioned an oral appliance. What is that? How does that differ from a CPAP? What are the benefits and what are maybe the downfalls of that?
Yeah. So a CPAP is basically just like blowing air at you. So it'll blast the airway open. So it's going to be effective, but it is not always well tolerated. And that's majority of the people that I see have tried it, have not been able to wear it. And it's frustrating because a lot of physicians are very much like CPAP or nothing. And I'm like, but a CPAP on your nightstand versus something that could get them like 80% better. Why wouldn't we do that? So oral appliance therapy is basically like a specialized type of night guard that helps keep your airway open. So it's not so much about keeping your jaw out. It's actually just about stabilizing it so it can't fall back, because when your lower jaw falls back, your tongue falls back and blocks your airway. So there's a variety of different styles. Like if you were to Google it, there's some really barbaric looking ones out there. As somebody who has it and has worn a bunch of them, I've tried everything. You really don't want anything bulky because that's just taking up more space for your tongue. Again, so the one that I wear looks, well, there's a few different styles, but it looks kind of like this. There's upper and a lower, kind of looks like a retainer. Like it's very thin and flexible. This isn't the exact one, but it's close. It's just like a thin thing. So there's an upper and a lower piece, and they just kind of click into each other when you're asleep so that your jaw can't fall back. Mine are not connected at all. There's a ton of different styles, but basically just having an upper and a lower, and your jaws just can't fall back. So this one just has like bars on it. It just can't fall back when you're sleeping. But like they're basically just like a retainer. It's nothing really bulky or big. So that protects your airway if that's the anatomical reason that you're not breathing well. It's not going to help if it's just a nose problem or something farther down. So that's where finding somebody who can actually like really do a good evaluation on you to see if you're a good candidate for it is important. But I would say it's very successful. It works really well for a lot of people. I always retest after to just make sure that we're controlling your apneas. And if we're not, then sometimes we have to do some more adjunctive things. But for some people, it's a matter of getting them into side sleeping and wearing an oral appliance. Downsides, I would say not that many, because if you don't like it, you can take it out. It's not a surgery. It's reversible. People get really freaked out about jaw issues, but most of the people I see already have jaw issues. And like, honestly, once you can breathe, your jaw just feels a lot better. And again, if you don't like it or it's hurting, you just take it out and the jaw issues go away. But everything, like if there are any concerns of jaw pain or discomfort, it usually is very short-lived and very manageable. And most people don't care because they're feeling so much better that they'd rather work through it. There's slight risks of your teeth shifting. But again, if you're breathing better and sleeping better, most people don't care. There are ways to prevent that. And that's why you want to go to a provider who actually does this and isn't just making a random snore guard without a sleep test. So I would say those are the biggest risks, but again, very, very manageable.
Is there a time that maybe the oral appliance is the wrong one or wrong fit for somebody and not actually helping them have the success with that?
So definitely dentally, like if somebody has loose teeth, like they have significant gum disease, or like I had one yesterday that called, she's in full dentures and she's doing fine with her CPAP and she really wants an oral appliance, but I'm like, look, you're doing well with that. And I just think that's better for you. Like sometimes dentally people are not the best candidate. So that can be a factor. Or if they have a lot of treatment going on, like say they're in the middle of a bunch of implants, I'd rather do something else until your teeth are more stable. But I would say there's only a few things like that that really make you a poor candidate in terms of the teeth. In terms of the rest of you, I would say, yeah, if we have other anatomical things to work on where you're collapsing, it just might not work 100% for you, but it should help.
That's good to know. So then it sounds like with the CPAP, it's more forcing the air. So it's keeping the airway open because it's forcing air in.
Correct.
I've had some clients who've been like, one, they feel like it's very uncomfortable. They end up ripping the mask off in the middle of the night. They get quote unquote worse sleep because they're fighting with the mask the whole night. But then others who feel like they have the GI issues, like they feel really bloated when they wake up because the air is being forced and it's going down their actual like GI system and not actually inflating their lungs.
Yeah, it's funny. I hadn't heard that a ton until recently. I've had like a few people recently that were like, I was doing great with my CPAP, but all of a sudden now I'm having that air swallowing feeling all the time. And the bloat and the GI issues. So for some people, it can be a good solution for a phase of life, but then sometimes not. For others, I have a lot of people like where I live who camp and hike and like don't have power certain times of the year. So like it wouldn't work. they need to have something else to bring with them. So it can kind of be like lifestyle wise, what's going to work for you to, some people just like to have multiple options. So some people have both and they'll kind of go between them.
Nice. Who are you seeing for the oral appliance? Because are there like things that you could do online versus like meeting with an actual dentist?
Please
Like,
be careful. I've had so many things I've had to fix. Like with anything DIY, how anal I am about taking your digital impression and measuring things and whatever. Like you're taking an impression on yourself at home and you're choosing your treatment position. That's kind of terrifying. And then they wonder why their teeth all shifted and now they have to spend $6,000 on braces when it would have been cheaper to just see somebody for a $3,000 appliance that your medical insurance might cover anyway. So unfortunately, sometimes things seem too good to be true and they might be too good to be true. It might work for some people, but that's when I see more complications, more jaw issues, more teeth shifting, more side effects, just more things that could have been avoided. I would say definitely if you have sleep apnea, you've been tested, your sleep provider should have a list of dentists. And if they don't, there's some resources. The AADSM has a directory of people who have some training in this. The Breathe Institute is awesome, has providers of all different backgrounds on their website all over the country. And Airway Circle is another one. They're not all dentists, but it might come up with like myofunctional therapists, airway minded providers of all types. It's kind of a small world of people. If you can find someone in your area, then they can usually direct you.
okay, great. We will put all of those in the show notes so people can have those resources. But yeah, oftentimes the DIY route sounds just good, but it's just a shiny object. You really need to work with the people who are trained and specialize in these things and not necessarily rely on online stuff.
Yeah, it's funny because I get so many targeted ads for this, and I'm sure you get it for all your stuff too. Like, but remember Smile Direct Club when everyone was doing their own braces?
Oh, yeah.
So they went bankrupt, and we had people coming in all the time trying to fix issues because no dentist was checking their teeth if they had bone loss or gum disease or cavities, and they're moving teeth that shouldn't be moved. And then they wanted us to sign some sort of thing so they could get a refund. I was like, I'm not getting involved. And now we're seeing the same thing in the sleep apnea world. So I have a feeling it's going to be short-lived because just legally this can't last. But be careful, be your own best advocate. If something feels weird or sketchy, like just get another opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's shift a little bit and talk about like general dentistry stuff. We talked a lot about airway, why that's important, but like, I mean, I ask my clients all the time if they go to the dentist twice a year as a recommendation, and some people are like, no. Are you flossing? Like, let's talk about general dentistry stuff that people should be doing to support their health. Because in what way, I know that you like to say like the mouth is a window to the body, but like, why is that? Why is our oral health so important when it comes to our overall health?
Yeah, so it kind of ties back into what we were saying before with like the microbiome. So many issues that we see in the mouth, cavities, things like that, it's a bacterial issue. Once we can flip that switch, you probably won't get cavities anymore. If it's not a bacterial issue, it might be an acid issue, and we need to neutralize more often. So I can give some tips on that, but I feel like in general, just kind of looking at those big picture things can help people get things back on track. So some of my tips for just like overall oral health would be neutralizing often. So I'm having my coffee right now. I will swish with water or chew in some sugar-free gum after. Xylitol gum would be my choice. It's going to neutralize, and the bad bugs can't eat it, basically. They can't digest it. So there's nothing there for them. And making a simple tweak like that, neutralizing after your coffee with water or sugar-free gum, game changer, huge. I think everyone just is very stuck on the like brushing and flossing. And in my opinion, that's like such a small part of it. It's the rest of the day and what's happening the rest of the day with your breathing and with, are you soaking your teeth in seltzer all day long? Maybe that's what we need to look at. So yeah, I can't even remember what the rest of the question was now, but those are a lot of the big things that I think get overlooked.
Mm-hmm. So like, what should somebody's day to day, you kind of touched on it, but what day to day should we be doing to support our dental health, and why is that important?
Okay. So of course, brush and floss, do your normal thing. Tongue scrape is big. A lot of people don't do that, but like a $2 stainless steel tongue scraper will literally last you forever. You can just pop it in the dishwasher.
What are the benefits of tongue scraping?
So a lot of the bad bugs that are pathogenic live on the back of your tongue. So not only are you going to have better breath, but it will keep everything healthier in general just by getting those bugs out of there. You'll literally get a film off when you do it once a day. It takes like 2 seconds. So no excuse. It's very easy, very cheap. That's a big one. I would say, of course, nasal breathing, like we've talked about. The xylitol is healthy for pretty much anybody. It's super dangerous for pets. So if you have animals, please keep in mind any xylitol products, keep them away. But just having an overall like diverse diet, like the things that you talk about all the time, like just having diversity in your diet, covering your bases there, because if your saliva has minerals in your own saliva, you're going to have healthier teeth because they're getting bathed every day in healthier saliva. So I think just kind of all the normal things that you're doing for your health are going to help your teeth too, outside of oral hygiene. I don't think a lot of people realize how much the stuff we talked about before with mouth breathing contributes to inflammation and bleeding gums and all of that. So there's all these things kind of just tied together.
And we do see a big shift too, I would say, hormonally for women as they go through peri and postmenopause,
Yes.
that can have a huge impact on their oral health. Do you want to talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah, so we see this a lot where there's kind of this unexplained inflammation or these spots where your gums are bleeding where they never did before. And it can be hormonal. Like, for example, a big one is in pregnancy. People who never had issues before, they'll have these big puffy swollen gums or like one specific spot that if you look at it wrong, it's going to bleed. And that's just hormones, unfortunately. And it does go away, but people get really nervous. And we never really learned about that your hormones can play such a role. So when you're going through like hormonal changes or you feel like your gums are puffier than usual, that's when I might say, okay, maybe we kind of slow down on the flossing or the picks and things like that. Let's do a more gentle, like a water flosser. And that might actually still keep things super clean and maybe a little hydrogen peroxide in there, but it's going to help with that inflammation without like poking at your gums and irritating them every day. We see that a lot with hormonal changes for sure. And it usually is short-lived, but is a big one that nobody talks about.
Yeah. And I would say too, to add to that is like through peri and postmenopause with the decline of estrogen, we're losing kind of that muscle tone, muscle strength, and your tongue is a muscle. So that's why we can see more sleep apnea issues arise for peri and postmenopausal women.
Yeah.
So we have to think about how we can support that. So again, the myofunctional therapy could be really beneficial, and getting a complete evaluation from an appropriate provider could be beneficial.
Yeah.
So I know that you have a few products that you know and love and swear by. We will definitely talk about where you can follow Kristen, but her social media is one of my most favorite accounts to follow because she gives such helpful, like tangible tips about what you can be doing to support your oral microbiome, your breathing, all of that. But I know you have a few things that you like swear by that are in your day-to-day routine. Could you touch on some of those for us?
Sure. So I would say some of the simple tools like the tongue scraper, easy, cheap. That's a daily thing. The water flosser that I like, everything should be linked in my Instagram because if you can't find it, but it's like $40. It's literally $40 and it'll last you a long time and you can take it in the shower. It's a cordless one. So there's no excuse. It's very easy and it doesn't make a mess. That's one that I love. The mouth tape that I like, if you've passed all the things that we've talked about, is called Taper. That's a big one. Toothpaste is hit or miss. I feel like it's kind of like use what you like, to be honest with you. I feel like it's such a small piece of the puzzle compared to what people think. I think the biggest thing is brush and spit and don't rinse it off. That's what I think a lot of us are missing. And then whatever remineralizing agent you like for me, I like a nanohydroxyapatite. It's staying on my teeth and I'm not just rinsing it all back off right before I go to bed. So that's a little key thing there. In terms of products, there's a lot of things that I like people to think about in their homes. Air purifier in the bedroom, things like that nobody's maybe talking to them about. So I can share more stuff on that. But product-wise, I think it's kind of a variety pack depending on what your issue is. Oral hygiene-wise, I feel like a tongue scraper and a water flosser is going to get you far. I don't care what kind of toothbrush you use. I honestly like a old school manual toothbrush and regular old floss majority of the time. It works just fine.
Okay, so here's a question I've always had. Am I supposed to brush my teeth and then floss them or floss them and then brush them?
It's a great question. And I'll tell you what I do. And I'm happy if you floss. I don't care when you floss. I'm just happy you ask because that means you're flossing. What I feel like is if you brush and then you floss, I want to go back in with the toothpaste. So a lot of people like to floss first and then brush. That's fine. I brush. I like to get everything out of the way so that my floss can get down in there. and then I do a quick swipe with toothpaste, sprit, and leave it. So I kind of do both. So I brush, I floss, and then I do a quick swipe, spit, leave it. So it doesn't really matter. I'm just happy you're flossing.
All right. You answered one of my most burning questions.
So glad.
Am I doing this in the right order? I mean, again, agree. Like if you're flossing, that's huge. And that is something that is very hard and something that like in the most recent years that I am becoming more routine with. I'm still not doing it every day. I will be 100% honest with that. But it's definitely increased in frequency over time. And as I'm learning more from Kristin's influence about how important my mouth is and my teeth are.
Keep some in your car or keep some by your TV. Like I don't love the flossers, but if that's what people are going to use, I don't care. Use it. So keep it somewhere you're going to be like sitting for a little bit, and that helps. There's also, I don't know if you saw it, but I shared last week, somebody sent me like these ones that you just like put in your mouth and you move with your tongue. Not my favorite, but it could be kind of a nice thing to hold like in your mouth and do while you're driving or whatever. Put it somewhere where you're actually going to use it. So it becomes like a sustainable habit.
I saw that on your Instagram and it looked like some great myofunctional therapy.
Yeah, right. I'm like, exactly.
And it could be beneficial for people who have limited use of their arms too, right? Then they're still able to floss. So I think that was a great niche market that they have with that product. Well, Kristen, I really enjoyed our conversation and I encourage everybody to go check out Kristen on her Instagram. Where can they find you? How can they connect with you?
So Instagram is probably the best at Prana with Dr. Kristen. You can shoot me a message on there, or you can always shoot an email to pranasleepandwellness@gmail.com. And local people, I'm near Albany, New York. It's easier in office, so I can always share more about that if people are local. But I can certainly do some stuff virtually. There's nothing open. Like if you try to book with me virtually, you won't find anything because it just got a little crazy. But if you say, hey, I heard you on Brady's podcast, we'll figure something out. So just connect with me on there and I'll do my best.
What do those consultations virtually look like with you? Like what would you be working through with them?
Yeah, a lot of people need help after a sleep test and they just feel stuck and want to know kind of like options and just a second opinion. I can do more of like a consulting kind of role because I'm not going to be doing your actual treatment. So I do that. I also have had several people who have both dental and sleep issues and they just kind of want to talk through it with somebody who can help them with like the systemic connections or maybe reading a salivary test that they got, things like that.
Awesome. Okay. We will put all your information in the show notes. But Kristen, I really enjoyed our conversation today. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Healthy Buzz. I hope this conversation has left you feeling seen, supported, and ready to take the next step in your health journey. Love what you heard? Make sure you subscribe to Healthy Buzz so you never miss an honest conversation. And if you found this valuable, please take a moment to leave a review. I truly appreciate it. For exclusive weekly tips and holistic strategies, be sure to subscribe to my weekly newsletter. The link is in the show notes. Remember, this isn't just nutrition, it's permission to trust your body. I'll catch you on the next episode of Healthy Buzz.